Today we're going to paint this adorable little hamster. This is a piece of Arches 140-pound cold pressed paper, about 5 by 6 or so. You could make it a perfect square. I used a lot of brushes for this little guy. I used a silver black velvet number 8, sorry, a 3/4 inch Princeton Neptune flat, a generic quill or mop, silver white 4 and 2. I used a rigger for the whiskers, and then I used 2 scrubbers, Wonder White number 2, and a small Rosemary & Co. eradicator brush. For paints, I just used my Convenience Colors palette. I used yellow ochre, burnt umber, sepia, a little burnt sienna, and I used manganese blue hue mixed with some Schminke cerulean blue on the outside. Today we're going to paint this cute little hamster. First I'm going to wet all around the outside with clear water. This piece of paper is an Arches cold pressed, about 5 inches by 6 inches. It's a little scrap that I had. And I fell in love with this little guy, and I thought, that's a great YouTube video. Background's all wet, and I want to make it blue. This is Manganese Blue Hue by Daniel Smith. I'm leaving some of the white of the paper showing, and I'm leaving a little bit along the outside of the outline, a little bit of white, because when I paint the hamster, it's going to hopefully be fuzzy, and I want the yellow to not mix with blue. So I watched Rachel Parker Varner's video about making fuzzy edges with on a baby chick, and for that she used lamp black and I forget what yellow. So I thought I would try to do that with this hamster. I have the background done, and I'm kind of maybe doing it a little bit backwards from her. I don't really remember. I watched it a long time ago. So I'm just gonna try and do this, and we'll see how it goes. So I have a 3/4 inch flat, and it's really soft, and I'm going to very lightly go over the whole painting with clear water. And I'm going to let that sit in there for a minute. Let it soak in to the paper. You can see how it's really wet. And I kind of want it to soak in a little bit more so that the paint won't fly around on the surface of the paper when I put it on. So I'm going to pause, and I'll come back when it's a little bit drier. It has been about 2 to 3 minutes, and it's still pretty wet, but it is starting to dry off. Very light value of a mixture of some colors that were on my palette already. And I'm going to go over the outline of the hamster with it and let the colors bleed into the blue. And now with a little bit more pigment, I'm going to use some yellow ochre, and I'm going to kind of just dab it around, see if I can get some contour onto this little guy. So this is the chin, and I'm going to make some dark under the chin. This is not going to be our final product. I'm going to add a little more here, up into the ear. So the head has some white up here and some yellowish brown down here. So I think I'm going to kind of clean that off. There we go. Put some in here. Up here on the nose. Around the eyes. I'm just kind of dabbing it on, getting it in kind of the right place. Not loving how that pigment is not mixed. And then this comes out like that. There's a lot of white out here. So what I will probably do is use my eradicator brush and make this a disappearing edge, and maybe make the top of the head a disappearing edge. Now he's got cute little cheeks right here, and they're a darker brown. I'm going to get a little bit of sepia and add that to my little my light value mix I have going on my palette here. A little of this here, a little out here, a little here under the chin, and a little here, a little in the ears, not a lot, and then here right next to the nose. I think I'm going to leave that area be because I think it's more of a pinkish purple. Now I have a damp brush, and you see where the paint has exploded? Here are these little feathers. I'm going to kind of get those off. That is just following that valley. And here is the part where taking off pigment is as important as putting it on. This little hamster doesn't have a lot of detail, and that's partly why I picked it, because I wanted to be able to do something kind of loose and make it quick and fun for you guys. A lot of times doing the long involved tutorials like I do on my Patreon can be mentally draining, and sometimes you just want to put paint on paper, and I thought a cute little chipmunk would be good for that. I'm going to put a little color right here. I'm going to dry that. I'm going to now kind of work on the face and the hands and the feet, get the details done, and then I'm going to work a little more on the fur. So these eyes look like they are a dark brown. And we're not going into all the little shades of brown that could be in those eyes. I'm just putting some sepia on there. The other one too. And then under the chin, it has a dark shadow. So I'm going to wet under the chin, but I'm not going to get the hands wet. And I'm bringing the water out further than it would go because I don't want there to be a hard line, and I want the pigment to have enough area to spread out on. Right in between those hands and the chin. Okay, now I'm going to add some sepia. I'm just dabbing it on. There's not as much over here. And I'm going to add a little bit of, oops, not sepia again, burnt umber. I think I'm going to go for some more yellow ochre. This yellow ochre came out, comes all the way up here. Wet brush to soften. And it comes all the way up to this part of the ear. This is sort of this is like an outer part of the ear. When the ear, he's kind of holding his ear back like an airplane wing. Soften. And then I kind of like this hard line here. I think I'm just going to leave that, and I think this might actually do a hard line as well. I'm going to put a little more burnt umber, a little more yellow ochre, and I am going to soften that one. A little more yellow ochre. Something up here on the nose. That's all around the eye. There's a lot of white around the eye, so I'm going to leave a border. A little more here. And this comes out. There's some white around this eye too. And there's a lot of white on this side. So all this, and then down to the chin is pretty much white. And then this comes around a little bit close to the eye. Soften. Let's get some pink. Just a teeny bit of pink for this little, oops, I got too much. A little nose. And I'm going to leave the above the nose. Okay, hands and feet. I'm going to go right in through the middle of these fingers with clear water and right up under the chin. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my burnt umber and darken under the chin. Maybe I might have too much water on it. There's a weird thing that happens when you have a little too much water. It doesn't move. It just isn't that weird. I think it just doesn't have enough surface area. I'm going to get some of the water out of there. See if that works. There we go. I'm being kind of lazy and not really getting my brush damp enough. I mean, I have too much water on my brush quite a few times here. It worked out well right here, though. I wanted that lighter and then up into darker, and that worked out pretty well. I'm really happy with that. I'm going to add just a little more sepia, just right here. Okay, between the legs, I'm going to wet. I'm just barely wetting it with a little bit of whatever water was left on my brush, and I'm going to bring it down to the shadow, the light value of yellow ochre. And now along the bottom of the legs, I'm going to go right onto the foot, and I'm going to add more yellow ochre all the way out here and up the side. And for now, I'm going to stay in the lines because I have an idea for when we're done painting this guy in. These little feet have some shadow and some pink. See what I mean about being lazy and not getting my paintbrush wicked out enough? It's not a big deal, it's just you're expecting it to be a certain wetness and it's not. It's too wet. Okay, a little bit more pink. See, that's really wet for it to move like that. I want that more pale, so I'm going to soak some of that up. And I'm going to move over here, put some pink on here. And this one has a little bit of shadow on the foot too, but only on the right-hand side. Yeah, I think we're getting some shape to the little guy's body. Let's do the hands. Actually, I need to let that dry. I'm going to do the nose right above here. This is kind of white. Oh my gosh, this brush. Why am I not? Do you ever have those days? Okay. His little hairs kind of come down and swoosh up. Okay, same with these little toes. I'm going to put some water outside the foot and add a little burnt umber. And I'm going to wet this and make this shadow right up here darker. Getting a mix that's on my palette already. I think it's a mix of Payne's Gray and some other stuff. And then this can come out here and then over to here. Now, so the feet look like they're sitting flat. There's a little bit of a bend at the knuckles, I guess. So I'm gonna just put a little more purple, but not go all the way to the toes. That looks a little better. Same here. I'm just using the belly of my brush to kind of dab it on. Okay, now the fingers need a little more definition. I'm going to soften this. So I think I'm going to use some of that purple. Kind of like we did with the feet. I'm very, very lightly suggesting the gaps between the fingers. And this finger looks pointy because my negative painting with the burnt umber is sloppy. There we go. Same here. Okay, I'm going to dry everything. Okay, I'm going to try and use one of this mop brush or quill. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. All of the identifying information is gone. So what I'm going to do is wet the whole page, and I'm going to let it sink in and make until it is damp. And then I'm going to take a darker color, like maybe purple or a darker value of the manganese blue, and do it around the outside, and then maybe the feathery effect will happen all around the edge of this little guy. I don't really want to disturb what I've done, so I'm just very, very lightly touching the paper to get the water on. And I do that a lot anyway to make everything sort of seal together. That's the way I think of it, is that it's sealing together. See, that just got picked up and moved. So the pigment moved around, you know, the slightest little bit. It's pretty wet. So I'm going to mix up a darker value. I'm going to mix up some more of the manganese blue hue. I'm going to mix some of the Schminke cerulean blue with it. Now let's see what our timing is like. I'm going to start with this corner. I like how the water isn't moving very quickly. So I'm staying far away from the hamster. No, that was too close, I think. Damp. So start far away from the hamster and then work your way in. This is the perfect amount of water. It's actually really perfect right here, right now. Timing it's pretty tricky. That's fuzzy and it's not really moving. Look at this. I'm excited. Look at this. I think I actually need to use a damp brush on it because it's drying hard. Now I'm going to do what's really hard for me, and I'm going to just let it be. I'm not going to pick at it. I am delighted with how this came out. I just love it. What I'm going to work on now is I'm going to use a little scrubber brush, and I'm going to try to make these cheeks look like they're full of something. They're not puffy enough. So I'm going to kind of take some of this yellow off. And then here is a little C shape of white. And then this is too hard. This is too hard of a line. Looks like a smile or something. And I'm going to take a paintbrush and take some of this pigment here and scooch it up right under the nose. And just soften like that. And now, so it doesn't dry hard, I'm going to smooth it out with a damp brush. I'm going to put some of that brown in the nose because it's not a perfectly smooth nose. It's got some texture to it. I'm going to try to shape this a little better here. I'm just going to kind of take it off. And I'll come back to that. Now this has some shape here. Work on the eyes a little more, get some more sepia. And I want to close up the gap between the outer line, the outer circle, and the inner circle. I'm just going to make that eye a little bigger. Too much water on my brush. That's the theme today. Too much water on your brush. And then this one, eyeball, kind of goes down in the little corner. That's a little better. And I want to darken this. Soften. Okay, I'm getting some more yellow ochre, and I'm going to try to do this a little better. There's a little bit of a triangle that comes down from the eye and then down to the cheek. And then this is rounded. And with a damp brush, I'm softening. So the key to doing animals that are so super fluffy like this and getting any kind of contour is to look for the shadows and then look for shapes. Like I just found that little triangle there, and then I put in the actual triangle and then I softened it. Now for this side, I'm going to get a light value of that original color that I was using that was a mix of a bunch of stuff on my palette. And this is a C shape. Comes down to there, and it comes out, goes like that. So with some water, I'm going to fill that in, and I'm going to get some more pigment and fill it in. And then I'm going to soften this with the damp brush, this too. Okay, I'm losing my C shape again, so I'm going to swipe it up a little. There's some white there, a little bit of shadow on the outside of the nose. With some purple. Now the problem with the nose is the outside of the nose isn't dark enough compared to the nose. The nose is very light. So I'm going to get some more water all around the outside of the nose, and I'm going to grab some purple and mix it with my little bit of brown and dab it on here. And I like to let the water just kind of take it away, and it looks like fur. It looks pretty cute now. Okay, I'm going to leave this alone, except for right here I'm just going to scrub a little bit of this. I don't love that it's hard line there, and I didn't love that shape. Okay, now I'm going to just scrub out the arms. The arms are white. Just very gently kind of moving the pigment off and dabbing. And now you can see the little bitty difference between the body and the arm. Same here. I'm going to actually take off that pencil too for the hand. Take off this, get more water. See, I scrubbed too hard there. I'm not having a very good day with this. This a little. And then the leg here, I'm going to get rid of that pencil. And now the leg right here is a little bit lighter than the other side. This is why I love scrubbing. And now this leg is a little more defined. And so will this one. Everything is pretty dry. I'm going to just get rid of some of this pigment around the eye here too. To move that away. I'll just put a little bit of white on the eye on the left. A little catch light right there and one right in the eye. And this one doesn't look like it has one. And now I'm going to just do the whiskers. I'm going to get this. This is a rigger, and I'm going to get it what's in the lid pretty wet. And this is a really good brush for this because it holds a lot of water and pigment, but it's a very skinny line. So I'm going to, I don't want the brush to skip. So what I'm going to do is go like that. Position your painting so that it's a natural way for your hand to move. So these whiskers here are kind of going down. They're not going over the hand really, just a little. And I'm going to kind of get some of it off and go back here. There's a little bit. Since I don't have much left on here, I'm going to go down here, and that looks unnatural, so I'm going to dab it up. And it took just enough off that it's just barely there. Okay, now for this one, for this side, I'm going to go like this. Get a little more water. I'm going to wick it a little. Now these whiskers, he doesn't really have any going obviously down. He's actually went down below to his body. Okay, so these are sticking out. Just grow some whiskers on here. This side's a little easier for me just because I'm right-handed. I'm going to get rid of those little beginning. The camera angle on this, these are blurry. And then he has some going. Doop. I'm just now throwing some in wherever I feel like they need to be. What a little cutie. What a little cutie. I hope you give it a try, and I hope you have good luck with the edges there, the fuzzy edges. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe and share with your friends. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.